You don't realize you're losing yourself at first. There's no dramatic explosion, no obvious villain speech, just a slow, quiet shift where your confidence starts leaking out in places you can't even name yet. One day you catch yourself apologizing for something that wasn't your fault. The next day you feel nervous sharing an opinion you once said freely. And somehow, somewhere along the way, you started believing the problem might actually be you. But here is the truth most people never hear. When psychological manipulators enter your life, they do not begin with control. They begin with connection. And that connection is carefully engineered. They notice what lights you up. They observe what wounds you carry. They map your emotional landscape with the patience of someone studying blueprints before construction begins. Then they build something around you. Not a relationship in the healthy sense, but a system. A subtle environment where your reactions feed their influence and your doubts become their tools. Today, we are dismantling that system piece by piece, not with aggression, not with dramatic confrontation, but with 5 psychological shifts that quietly remove their power without them even understanding how. The first shift is emotional neutrality. Most people assume strength means arguing back, defending yourself, proving your point with passion and clarity. But psychological manipulators are not debating your logic. They're measuring your reactions. They're watching your face change, listening for the tremor in your voice, not because they care what you say, but because your emotional activation confirms their control is still working. So imagine becoming emotionally unremarkable, not rude, not distant, just neutral. Your responses become simple, predictable, calm. Nothing dramatic to grab onto, nothing exciting to escalate. At first, they may push harder, ask sharper questions, attempt to provoke a stronger reaction. But when emotional stimulation disappears, so does their incentive to continue. Because control requires feedback, and when feedback vanishes, the interaction loses its psychological reward. This is not punishment, it is disengagement at the nervous system level. The second shift is strategic curiosity. Manipulators rely heavily on momentum. They deliver statements quickly, confidently, often layered with emotion so you respond before you analyze. You feel confusion rising, but instead of pausing to question it, you try to keep up. You defend yourself instinctively, and suddenly the conversation becomes a maze you never meant to enter. Now imagine slowing everything down with one simple response. Not confrontation, not accusation, just calm curiosity that invites clarification. When you gently ask them to explain their reasoning step by step, something fascinating happens. Their narrative begins to fragment under the weight of sustained attention. Not because you attacked it, but because it was never designed to survive careful examination. Manipulation thrives in speed. Clarity thrives in stillness. The third shift is documenting reality. One of the most destabilizing experiences in psychological manipulation is having your memory subtly questioned over time. At first, it sounds harmless, small disagreements about what was said, slight reinterpretations of events. Eventually, you begin to doubt your own perception. This erosion is not accidental. It is a known dynamic where confidence in your internal compass slowly weakens, making external validation feel essential. So, you begin creating a quiet archive of your experiences, notes after conversations, reflections on how interactions made you feel, observations captured before they fade. This practice does something powerful. It restores continuity. You start seeing patterns instead of isolated incidents. Your perspective becomes anchored again. And when someone later attempts to reshape the narrative, you're no longer relying on fragile recollection. You're grounded in documented experience. Before we continue, notice something important. If any part of this feels familiar, your awareness is already shifting, and awareness is the beginning of psychological autonomy. The fourth shift is rebuilding external connections. Manipulative dynamics often narrow your world gradually, not through commands, but through subtle discouragements. Comments that make your friendships seem less trustworthy, suggestions that your interests are distractions, implications that only they truly understand you. Over time, your social environment shrinks, and with fewer perspectives around you, their influence feels larger and more authoritative. Now, picture expanding your world again, reconnecting with someone you drifted away from, exploring an activity that belongs entirely to you. Each new interaction reintroduces contrast, different emotional climates, alternative viewpoints, independent sources of validation. This does not create conflict, it creates perspective. And perspective quietly dissolves the illusion that one person defines your reality. The final shift is internal release, perhaps the most difficult one, because it involves letting go of a hope that feels deeply human. The hope that if you explain clearly enough, they will finally understand, that empathy can be unlocked with the right combination of words and patience. So you rehearse conversations in your mind, you refine your explanations, you search for the perfect moment to be heard. But psychological manipulators often understand perfectly well. Their performance of confusion keeps you engaged in a loop of emotional investment. When you stop seeking their understanding, something unexpected happens. The interaction loses its central tension. Your energy begins returning to you. You're no longer standing at a locked psychological doorway waiting for acknowledgement. You are moving forward toward environments where connection is reciprocal. This is not dramatic victory. It is quiet freedom, the kind that shows up in ordinary moments when you realize your thoughts feel lighter. None of these shifts happen overnight. Influence that developed gradually must also be dismantled gradually through consistent choices that prioritize clarity over comfort. Yet, if you're here listening, part of you is already choosing differently. Your mind is recognizing patterns that once felt invisible. Become emotionally neutral where reactions once fueled control. Ask clarifying questions that slow distorted narratives. Protect your reality through reflection. Rebuild a life rich with connections and meaning beyond any single relationship, and release the exhausting need to be understood by someone unwilling to truly see you. Because the most powerful transformation is not changing them, it's remembering who you were before you started shrinking and choosing to become that person again. Share this with someone who might need it, and stay curious, because psychological freedom is not a destination, it is a practice you strengthen every single day.